through 12. So once again, was in preliminary discussions, but at the time right now, we don't have anything approved for building.
Are your long-term planning, your long-range planning committee, are they working on some of these pieces?
We've
Is there
done
a long-range planning committee?
no. However, our board is going to bring a proposal up at their meeting Thursday night to create a committee to start looking at the impact of student growth. It may not have the name Long Range Planning Committee, but what it will do is look at how we need to be responding to what's happening with the developments and the influx of students we may be seeing.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Yes, sir.
Any questions for Ms. Briggs?
Yes, Ms. Briggs.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I watched your presentation for the County Planning Commission. It was very good. And you brought up quite a few interesting facts. Like I wasn't aware of the configuration in the different elementary schools. But with that, I'm looking at the developments under construction, in particular the Mallory Point, Scott's Farm rows here. And I noticed that under the Carrollton Elementary School, no numbers from the Mallory Point is allotted. They're going to West Side Elementary?
So that area was recently rezoned with the opening of the new Hardy Elementary, and we rezoned students down Battery Park Road to Jones Creek and down the one towards Nike Park Road to Jones Creek. We extended the Hardy boundary to pick up Wellington, Gatling Points North and South, and it would now include Mallory Point and Scott's Farm. So students coming in to that development will go to Hardy pre-K through 4 and then to West Side. They won't go to Carrollton at all from that development.
Okay. Well, so I'm guessing that the buses would go down Church Street, cross Cypress Bridge, through toward North Main Street, through the town, and past Smithfield Foods to get to school.
They're doing that currently, yes, sir.
And what about if the construction that we would have, the updates on Cypress Creek Bridge that's beginning to start, well, that'll be finished by the time Mallory Point come online? Is that the thinking?
Well, the buses are already running that way. Our transportation department has a plan in place for transporting students. Well, to Hardy would not be an issue, but coming home from Hardy, they will have to use an alternate route. But they're already taking students from Wellington and Gatling Point, Rescue, over to Hardy Elementary this year. I don't know the time frame for the Cypress Creek Bridge replacement.
They'll just take an alternate route.
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
They're doing that now with the students in that on that side of the bridge already. Well, they will be, excuse me.
But don't forget, these numbers are hard to work with, because do you look at it an absolute number, you know, at 93%, 106%, et cetera, across that bottom line of all the approved developments? Remember, Cypress Creek was approved in the early 90s, and it's taken 30 years to get it there.
Right.
You know, just because these things are developed doesn't mean they're going to happen tomorrow, and they might not happen over the next 2 years or 10 years or 20 years. So the struggle I had with this, thinking about it, is you look at the numbers and you say, oh, we're done with development until they start proffering to schools. But at the same token, you know, what number do we really use to look at developments? Because all of these things are phased in separately. And that's the hard part. None of this stuff is going to happen in the next five years, unless there's interest rates really drop and things really take off. But, you know, that's something that's very difficult to predict. But it's hard of how do you look at these numbers, and how are you going to take these numbers and approach a developer that comes before us and says, all right, this piece of document to me should accompany every development at the county and town level, because you've got to be able to recognize, yes, we can accept 40 new students, but it's 40 new students in relation to everything else that's been approved. And so, I mean, it's a huge decision factor, even if these are gonna be phased in at different timeframes. And so it's how are you gonna approach it? How are you gonna work the numbers? How are you gonna interpret what's going on with this to say, yes, we can accommodate this next development, you can accommodate this, you can accommodate that?
And to that point, Dr. Pope, I think we use this as a guide to say, hey, we need, as a county, and that's not what our planning commission does, but as a county, it's like, we really need to be looking at expanding our schools because growth is coming, because we've approved a lot of it, whether it's tomorrow or 10 or 15 years, like you said. But the way that proffers work is that if we were to say, if we had development coming from us tomorrow and we would say, well, sure, but you're gonna have to proffer for our schools. Legally, they can't do that because we don't have any new schools planned. So until we have a new school planned, the condition of proffers for education and new developments is not even a legal proposition. It has to be planned and kind of on our books before we can even consider proffers for education. Now, as a planning commission, this is something we need to look at and need to be very aware of. And hopefully the school board says, yeah, we need to be planning for new schools and can get some of this stuff in writing so that as developments come online, and if we wish to ask for proffers, we now have a legal basis to understand why that is.
Ms. Briggs, do you know if anyone from planning is going to take this further and do the phasing out that you mentioned? Is that something county planning is going to do?
I do not know an answer to that.
Just curious, thank you. Other questions, comments? Thank you very much, this was very helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Briggs.
All right, next up, we have an entrance corridor overlay application, 1113 South Church Street, Knight Exteriors, Eric Knight applicant. Ms. Clary?
Yes, thank you. The applicant is seeking entrance corridor overlay approval to redo the existing deck and wheelchair ramp that's located in the front of the building, and also to replace the existing metal awning with a framed gable-style roof. The proposed shingles will match the existing shingles on the structure. The positive, this application will allow the applicant to continue to provide ADA accessibility. Staff do recommend that approval is contingent on the applicant completing a zoning permit application and fee payment. Thank you.
Okay, do we have anyone here to speak on behalf of the applicant? No. Any comments from planning commission?
No, it seems to be an appropriate improvement to the property.
It looks good, yes, looks good.
So I would make a motion to approve as presented with staff comments.
Second.
Ms. Clary, call for the question, please.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Pack,
Yes.
Dr. Pope,
Yes?
Mr. Bryan,
Yes.
Vice Chair Mr. Davison,
Yes,
and Chairwoman Hillegas.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next item, entrance corridor overlay application 1228 Smithfield Plaza. David Burdette is the applicant. Ms. Clary, you have a staff report?
Yes, thank you. The applicant is seeking an entrance corridor overlay review for the proposed remodel of the Burger King fast food drive-through restaurant with no proposed footprint or height changes. The restaurant remodel entails the following exterior renovations. Like-for-like replacement of the red light van located at the top of the roof. It will be internally lit with white LEDs with a red acrylic insert similar to the existing feature on the building. The red light band will only be lit during the evening hours. Removing the orange canopy overhang encompassing the building and replacing it with 7 silver metal canopy eyebrows. The canopies will be located over the main entry door and the dining room windows on the front, over the dining room windows and second patron entry door on the side, and over the remaining dining room windows and 2 drive-through windows at the rear. Adding a total of 4 archons, architectural features adorned with nichaha siding and along with metal caps protecting from the weather. Both would be in a wood grain brown color known as cedar. The 4 archons will be added to the front. The 2 drive-through windows at the rear in the corner of the building where the secondary patron door is located. 1 dining room window will be removed at the rear. removing the existing yellow EIFS and replacing it with stucco finished walls in a tan color desert dune, featuring horizontal reviews to break up the sections of the wall, removing 2 existing wall signs, installing 4 new signs, 2 signs to the archon on the front featuring the BK Bun logo, approximately 32.5 square feet, 6 feet by 5 feet 5 inches, and Home of the Whopper canopy sign, approximately 10.75 square feet. The 2 remaining wall signs featuring the BK Bun logo will face the main entrance to the shopping center and the multi-tenant shopping building. All wall signs will be internally lit with white LEDs. There will be 4 new exterior downlighting light fixtures will be added to the building. 2 will be added on the right side of the front. 1 light will be added over the exit door. 1 will be added between the 2 drive-through windows at the rear. And all 7 new metal canopies will feature the same downlight. The stone veneer located on the lower portion of the building will remain in place, but will be modified to accommodate the new archons around the 2 entry doors and the 2 drive-through windows. The dumpster enclosure will also be renovated, featuring the same desert dune stucco walls and stone veneer. And the freestanding sign will be updated with the new BK Bun logo and freshly painted. Town staff do recommend that approval of this ECO overlay application is conditioned on the applicant submitting a zoning permit application, the requisite $75 application fee for the commercial renovations, a sign permit application and fee prior to beginning the proposed renovations and installing the proposed new signs. Thank you.
Phew, everybody get all that? Do we have anyone here to speak on behalf of the applicant? Yes, sir. Come up, state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, my name is John Naparlo. I live in Richmond, Virginia, and I am the franchisee of the location.
Okay. Anything you want to add to the staff report about your application?
Not really here to answer any questions we have, but this is a brand requirement upgrade at this time, and hopeful to get approval tonight.
Facelift would be nice.
Thank you.
Are there any planning commission comments or questions for the applicant? Nothing?
I don't think so.
Okay. Anybody entertain a motion to approve?
I find it to be a fine improvement. I make the motion that we approve this application as presented with the conditions provided by town staff.
Second?
Let's go to call for the question, please.
Dr. Pope,
Yes.
Mr. Pack,
Yes.
Mr. Bryan,
Yes.
Vice Chair Davidson,
Yes.
and Chairwoman Hillegas.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We look forward to those improvements. Thank you very much. Our next item is a public hearing, special use permit, 107 Institute Street, Hallwood Properties. Mark Hall is the applicant. Ms. Clary?
Yes, thank you. The applicant is seeking approval for a special use permit in accordance with the Smithfield zoning ordinance 3HC28 for a waiver of yard requirements to allow 0 side yard setbacks. The current building is non-conforming as it currently has 0 side yard setbacks for the left side. The applicant is proposing a masonry ramp on the front of the building to allow ADA accessibility. It would have a 0 side yard setback on the left side and allow for a right side yard setback of approximately 3.78 feet. It would feature a rectangular planter along with a brick wall and white vinyl fencing. Since the drafting of this staff report, the applicant has provided a second alternative illustration and proposal featuring a 5-foot 6-inch setback that they would like approval for either of these 2 options. The positives, this application will allow the applicant to bring the existing non-conforming structure into compliance while also providing ADA accessibility. Negatives, it's not a by right use and does require an SUP. Approval should be conditioned on the applicant appearing favorable recommendation should be conditioned on the applicant appearing before the BHAR for additional approval for the SUP. Thank you.
Thank you. The applicant like to speak? State your name and address for the record, please, Mr. Hall.
Mark Hall, 7432 Barton's Landing in Smithfield. Thanks for hearing me tonight. I'm working to bring this building back to life. It's pretty much been vacant, I think, for at least 25 years, maybe more. And it's going to have to be a complete gut remodel. It needs a lot of work, and therefore we have to bring it all the way up to code, which means we need ADA accessibility. So there, with no side yards, working with a ramp is going to be very difficult. So we did the best we could here. So anyway, so I applied with the big old masonry ramp on there, which seemed to be the only best option. In talks with, I've had some informal conversations with BHAR members. They weren't kind of thrilled with just the idea of the ramp. They haven't really seen this yet, though. Probably is going to look better than they think. But there was some pushback on that, so I just wanted to provide the alternative of the lift, so that if they really, really want to get away from the ramp, I'd be willing to do the lift as well. So I'm asking for an either-or type of thing that so BHAR can kind of guide on that.
So where would the lift go on this?
It will be
second
on, it's over there. If you look on the drawing, on the site plan, you should see it. It would be on the left side of that
Number 13.
porch. Yeah.
Oh, right here. Number 13?
Right here. Okay, I got you. Thank
So you'd go around to the left with a wheelchair,
Yeah.
or if you were just ambulatory, or just walk over there and you would
Okay.
rise up to the
Okay.
porch level. So it would be hidden, which is, we were trying to make it look attractive.
Very nice. Questions or comments for the applicant? Oh, public hearing, sorry. We need to open the public hearing. Public hearing is officially open. We have no signups, so we will close the public hearing. Now, question or comments for the
Do
applicant?
you have a personal preference of what you prefer?
I wish I didn't have to do it really, but my architect is passionate that he's not really in favor of the lift because he doesn't think they're reliable enough. They require a lot of maintenance and this and that. But I understand BHAR, some of their views as well, in that big old honking ramp is taking up a lot of eye space. So I'd like the latitude to do either, and after I talk with the BHAR on that. So if y'all could approve both, I would really appreciate that. But if you need to pick one, I will.
I just feel like a ramp with less maintenance, better hold up over time and all of those issues, and it's not a maintenance nightmare. A lot of the ramps we've been in church and stuff, they just seem rickety and they age, and a ramp would be a much more permanent solution and be less maintenance for you and less long-term headache, in my opinion. But I don't know if I have a preference. If I have to approve the aesthetics, either one is fine with me, or both is fine with me, and let BHAR figure it out. But a ramp would make more sense to me than a lift.
I know
I'll keep it in mind.
that at the Y, they have a lift that goes up to their room A, and in the 20 years that I've been going there, I've never seen it used. So
Right.
I don't know. I agree with Dr. Pope. They can be a maintenance nightmare.
Right, I agree. It would need maintenance frequently.
Any other comments?
Yes. To the applicant, this rendering that you gave us earlier today, I suppose, is it showing the ramp?
It's hidden. It's on the left side, so we purposefully built the wall out to the left there, so it's hiding it. So if you look at the site plan, that was kind of behind
That's where
that.
the
It's
lift
number
would be, Charles.
13.
Yeah.
Yes, I was looking at the original.
You'll see it on
Drawing.
the left there. So we just extended that wall out so it would hide it, because it makes it a little more attractive, really. Less busy looking.
But even with the ramp, I thought the wall would be built in front so you wouldn't actually see the incline of the ramp to begin with.
That's an interesting point. The wall eliminates sort of the view of the ramp, right?
Yes.
So it gives you a consistent look. It almost looks like the foundation. So that was the architect's idea of kind of, in some ways, hiding the ramp or making it more, So the ramp, you would enter like up there, you would go up this way and then over and then around like that.
Right,
Yeah.
and you had a planter in that original drawing.
Yeah, and, you know, it takes a lot of, the rise to run ratio, it takes a long distance to get up about 3 feet, you know,
Yes.
36 feet.
36 feet.
Personally, I think you have a better aesthetic with the lift.
Well, yes.
I mean, and we're in a historic district, and you're being forced to bring modern standards to a historic building. I suppose that's not our purview. That's more likely BHAR's purview.
That's next week.
Yeah. Personal opinion, I prefer the aesthetics of the lift, but I understand both the comments on the functionality as a business owner of
Any other comments?
We are just looking from the Planning Commission for a motion on the site plan amendment, and then also a recommendation to Town Council on the special use permit for a waiver of yard requirements for the 0 lot line. Thank you.
I did not mention that the use will be commercial offices to be open at least 5 days a week.
Great.
At this time, I would move that we approve let me see if I can get this right.
Site plan amendment.
Yes, I want to approve the site plan amendment and recommend to town council the granting of the special use permit.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Clary, question?
Dr. Pope?
Yes.
Mr. Pack?
Yes.
Mr. Bryan?
Yes.
Vice Chair Davidson?
Yes.
And Chairwoman Hilderdahl.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks very much for your service.
Thank you. It's going to be a great improvement. Appreciate it. Next item is also a public hearing, text amendment cottage at Battery, development, logistics, and consulting care of Nathan Deal and Brian Mullins. Is there a staff report, Ms. Clary?
Yes, thank you. The applicants are seeking a favorable recommendation on a proposed text amendment to the attached residential zoning district. The applicants would like to construct 130 condominium units at T-Pen 21A01511 behind Royal Farms. These units would have 0 lot line dwellings and units with attached rear detached garages. Each lot would be approximately 34 foot by 91 foot and approximately 3,094 square feet, featuring a 12-foot front yard setback. In order to have a mechanism to bring this application for review and decision, the applicants are proposing a text amendment to Article 3EI10A1 for condominiums that would state all AR district provisions shall be met as if lot lines existed unless approved by special use permit, and then repeal item 2. This would allow the applicants the ability to apply for a rezoning of the property to AR and seek potential approval for their proposed project. According to the definition of dwelling single-family attached, it does include 0 lot line dwellings. Currently, the zoning ordinance does treat condominiums the same as attached residential dwellings in regard to setback, density, and yard requirements. This proposed text amendment would allow the applicant to apply for a special use permit to allow their proposed development. They would still need to rezone the property, request a change to the future land use map, and request any additional SUPs or waivers that may be required. Staff have identified that the project at the very least will requiring an SUP to exceed maximum density, an SUP for smaller lot width, SUP for waiver of parking and loading, not providing RV parking, Planning Commission waiver for open space, non-contiguous, a rezoning to attached residential, and then the future land use map amendment. The project was previously zoned. This property was previously zoned to MFR, multifamily residential. This was to allow the 15 10-plex buildings, 150 units. The positives is this text amendment would provide the applicants with a mechanism for their proposed project. The negatives, the current zoning ordinance does not have a mechanism for this project to move forward. The applicants are proposing this text amendment to allow them to submit applications for the proposed 130 0 lot line condominium units. Thank you.
Thank you. As I said, this is a public hearing. Public hearing is now open. Do we have any sign-ups? Mr. Covington, if you would come to the podium, please. State your name and address for the record, please, sir.
Good evening, Madam Chairman. Congratulations, Vice Chairman and Commissioner. and the outgoing chairman. Thank you for the service to the town of Smithfield, and also the councilman, Mr. Pack. How are you this evening?
Good, thanks.
Now, last time this application came, I hadn't had a chance to see this. And I remember the applicant saying that there's no sidewalks. If I look at the picture looked good, it's great. I think it's a wide-angle camera that's showing this. And then when I look at the models that he has here are great. I don't have a problem with them. But when you go for a zero lot variance and stack them together, then that's where I have a problem with that. Because it's the previous application, it was referred to the last time. As far as I'm concerned, I understand that application is gone. The footprint is not the same. Anything that happened with that is not a consideration for the new applicant. At least that's my thinking of what's going on. So, because it was well, I'll leave that alone. I only have 5 minutes. And now, the applicant has 22 acres to work with within the current ordinance, even though the net development is only 14 acres. So there's not a shortage of land to meet what previous developers and resident owner has applied for an application with setbacks, side yards, and everything. He also mentioned that the units are going to start at $400,000. That's not affordable houses, okay? And then at $400,000 with no sideline, no zero lot size, that a family there with kids and things of that nature, they are packed in, they are tight, they're locked in. So the density that he's asking for, I think, is a little much. There should be more open space between the models that he has to do. Also, I took a trip down to Decorah, and God forsake, that day, the garbage cans was out, okay? To get around that unit, I mean, 2 cars couldn't pass. They were ducking in between the garbage and everything, and the backyard, the family has no privacy down there. And even here, what is being proposed, there's no private even though they say common area. I live in the villas of Smithfield, and I understand common area, but when you have kids, you have dogs, and you're out with the family, having your barbecue or whatever, you want a little privacy for $400,000. And therefore, I just think to grant a zero line and the density that he's requesting is an impact, as the lady stood first on the school district. It's going to have an impact on the school district. It's going to have an impact on the emergency vehicles. It's going to have an impact on the firemen. It's going to have an impact on the security. And when I look at the perimeter of the sketch that he has, all the rears of the property coming down the private drive behind DMV, Dollar General, Royal Farm, you look at the back of the garage. That's your view. When you go down Battery Park Road, you're looking at the back of the garage. Now, I might be able to have a little preference because I live there in the villas and I'm looking across at it, but going down the water with the stormwater management system, the garage is on, well, there's going to be a buffer. And then if you look at his plan, his sketch, and then it's a little hard for me. I'm 84, I can't see too good now. But he used every inch and everything is up to the boundaries. If you're going to the villas has the management responsibility for the stormwater system. if you're going
30
to.
seconds, Mr. Covington.
Huh?
30 seconds remaining.
Oh, okay. If you're going to manage, you need space on the exterior perimeter to maintain and keep the community up to standard. That's what I had to say. And I'm not for the zero lots for this, and the density. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Covington. Next, we have Mary Ellen Biebermeyer, I'm sorry. Didn't mean to butcher that. You would state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, Mary Ellen Biebermeyer, 355 Grace Street. I can assure you that Mr. Covington and I did not plan our talks ahead of time, but I'm just going to hit the repeat button here. I too took a drive down when they were here at the last meeting and mentioned the other development that they have over by Decoys. I too went over there, and they are very nice. They look nice. I have no issue with the look of the buildings. I don't have any issue with a condo per se, a standalone building. I have no problem with that. My issue, and this goes with every development that has been coming to us lately, is the density. We cannot, they basically will look like townhouses. The fact that you say that there's so much in between, it doesn't look like that. They look like townhouses. I think we've come to the point in the town of Smithfield and especially in northern Isle of Wight County, we can't have the density anymore. The schools can't handle it, the traffic can't handle it, the fire and rescue can handle it now, but it's going to be coming, we're going to have to expand that as well. So I think this is where the pictures on the initial, on the proposal, they look very nice because they just show you the individual units, but until you look at the whole plan, that's where they're stacked up side by side. It's too many for that small area. Again, like Mr. Covington said, you're looking at the backs of the garages on all the major streets, on Church Street, on Battery Park Road. I don't think that's appropriate either. It doesn't fit what we're trying to do here. When we talk about often the walkability, we want to walk different places, we walk to the store, we have to have somewhere to walk to, but you have to have sidewalks, and so there has to be room for sidewalks in a neighborhood like this. I think any neighborhood in the past that has been built without sidewalks, we end up having issues. People they do want to walk, and you end up walking on the road. Even if it is an enclosed area, an enclosed neighborhood, just for the sake of on-street parking and the safety of pedestrians, of children, kids riding their bikes, whatever, you have to have sidewalks in an area. So I'm going to leave the details of the numbers and all that to you, but what I'm saying is the density, really has to be cut in half. In order to, it went from 150 to 130, that's not enough. It literally has to be cut in half again. There needs to be more green space. We have to start seeing what is this making our town look like. We don't just want to have a bunch of houses crammed in here all together. That's not aesthetically what I think we want for the town. It's not a look what we want for the town. And I think I would really want you to consider that. I think we're going to have, on a kind of a side note, we're going to have a little snapshot on how traffic is going to be when the Cypress Creek Bridge is under construction. Living on Grace Street, I've already heard from friends, neighbors, not necessarily neighbors, but people that are already dropping their kids off on Hardy. They've already warned me that this is what the Hardy parents are doing. They'll be driving down Grace Street when they come back into town to get to the bypass. We can say they're going to go. 1 minute left. We can say they're going to leave Hardy, go out to the right, to go out to the bypass or down Berry Hill Road. It's not going to happen. So I think we're going to get a feel for how this is all going to work in terms of the traffic in the very near future. So anyway, I appreciate your concern and your listening for all this, but I really want to look at the density for all these future developments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Beeper. That's all the sign-ups we have. If there's anyone else who would like to speak on this item, the public hearing item, now would be your shot. Hearing none, we close the public hearing. Is there any applicant here this evening? Would you all like to speak?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nathan Deal, 1885 Governor's Point Drive in Suffolk, Virginia. I'd like to apologize on my voice. My daughter had a cheer competition, nationals, last week and this past weekend, and I'd like to say that me and a bunch of the other fathers really like to enthusiastically support our daughters, so I'm not contagious or anything.
Good job, Dad.
Thank you. I would like to state, I know all you guys are aware, I would like to state for the record that, you know, this is just, we're here for a text amendment tonight. This allows the project a path forward. It doesn't give the project any type of approval tonight. We will have to go through all the typical approval processes and whatnot coming forth. You know, site plan approval, stormwater regulations will need to be met, all the typical code and development regulations will need to be met. I would like to touch on just a couple items that have been brought up tonight. The zero lot line issue and looking at the landings as you all have been able to do. We call them lots, but they're not lots, it's a condo, so there's not really a lot line, we're just terming it that. But there is more room in between these buildings than there are at the landings. At the landings, those were 10 feet apart, and these will actually be 17 feet apart. So there is almost twice the distance in between the units that there are at the landings. So it will feel more spread out than that, but still retain that same kind of cottage feel. There was a concern brought forth about the back of the garages to Rural Farm, Battery Park, the BMP. When you're looking at the site plan, sure, it looks that way, but there's landscape buffers along Battery Park Road and along the Royal Farms. We will, you know, heavily landscape and break up the rear of those garages. It will look very nice once that's done. And once again, the landscaping will be one of the items that's going to be required during site plan review, and staff will definitely have an opportunity at that point to, you know, require more landscaping or voice their opinion there as well. But we do plan, you know, to take care of that. There's concern about the density, and that's already been stated. This project was approved for 150 units. Today, me and my partner, Brian Mullins, he apologizes for not being able to be here tonight. He's been sick, under the weather for a few days. But it would not be our plan to move forward with what was previously approved, the 12 plexes. That's not our thing, and we don't think that that product fits this town or that location correctly. But the density is being reduced from that approval of 150 units to 130 is what we're proposing. We say 130, you know, that number, we might have to lose one during the site plan process, whatnot, you know, due to staff comments during that process. And then there was another concern about the walkability and the sidewalks. Originally, the typical lot layout did show a sidewalk coming out the front of the unit, turning and teeing into the driveway, and there was not connectivity there. But when we met last month, that concern was raised, and we will happily connect the sidewalks through for full sidewalk connectivity, so that's not an issue. I would like to also bring up the point that due to previous talks with staff, there was requested that maybe we could provide some connectivity to the existing street to the south of us. And what we're proposing right now is to provide a walk or a golf cart path, whatever it may be, that we can agree upon during, you know, site plan approval. We do propose to connect from there, along the BMP, a nice walking path along the BMP, and then I believe there was going to be an extension of the bike path along Battery Park Road. So we would extend that across the frontage of the property, and this path tying in from the street to the south and along the BMP would also tie into that. So there, between adding the sidewalks on the front of the lots and providing this nice golf cart path or whatever we want to make it, I think we're going to have awesome connectivity and safety for the kids to move around the project. So that's really all I have. I'm here for any questions that anybody has.
Just a reminder, all we're dealing with tonight is a recommendation on a proposed text amendment that would give them the opportunity to make a formal application. So we've got a long way to go before this is
Yes, ma'am.
coming back to us again. Any questions or comments for the applicant?
Cleo, well, I know this doesn't necessarily deal with the text amendment, but on your plan, I think we need to really approach Battery Park cautiously because that road is ultimately going to be widened. And I don't know how that's going to impact the encroachment on there. There's going to be a bike path that's probably going to be on that side of the road as well. And I don't know how those 16 units are going to hold up on that side of the development. So if losing 16 units significantly impacts your development, that's going to be a very tough sale because of the future expansion, sight lines down that, and not looking at the back of the buildings going down a major thoroughway for us. So that 16 buildings for me is going to be very tough.
Okay. We do, yes, behind the back of the garages, we do have the 10-foot landscape buffer that is through there. And then from that landscape buffer to the right-of-way line is 30 feet. So I'm confident that another 12-foot lane could be added through there.
Other questions or comments for the applicant?
I don't have any questions, but I do have comments.
Okay.
And my comments, well, I would ask commissioners, have any of you gone to Decors to see the product that the applicant has built there?
Yes.
Yes.
You've been there? Dr. Pope?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Davidson? Vice Chair
have not
Davidson?
been there.
You haven't been? Okay. Well, I looked over there. And I'm concerned about what we're doing with our zoning ordinances, these text revisions and such, to permit various types of developments. And what I saw at the landings, I don't see anything like that within the town of Smithfield. And I go back to what we did the PMUDs. We made revisions and came up with the PMUD ordinance, the zoning, and I was fine with that. But what made it become a concern to me was the immediate application of another developer wanting to put in another PMUD. And we're trying to control growth here. And we see what's happening with our schools. Well, I think all of us really are concerned about the growth and what's happening here. But looking at this, it's almost as if every 2 or 3 months we're revising our ordinances. And it's become a slippery slope. The intent of this attached residential ordinance was to maintain medium density. I think that should be maintained. And this text change considered here is, to me, it undermines the zone's intent. Looking at the landings, just to come up with some analogy of what it looked like, it looks almost like it's a sardine can. The roads are so small in that development. Everything is so close. To me, it seemed like it's an inconvenience for any of the residents to get about within that development. And again, I say we don't have any product, any community, neighborhood in the town of Smithfield that resembles anything like it. I just don't see how the proposed product is going to fit into Smithfield character. And if you look at, in the ordinance that's further down in our agenda, uses permitted. You know, I would say look at C1 in that ordinance. And if I can find that, let's see quickly, I think it was page 88, next to the next page. Page,
Is it page 78 of the PDF?
is it 78?
I've got it on page 78.
Yep.
It's on 78, okay. Yes, that's the one, C1. Uses permitted by special use permit. Single-family detached residence subject to the SR district regulations, provided that such residents do not comprise more than 25% of the total planned residential units depicted on the general development plan. 25%. This text amendment allows the applicant 100%. It really becomes a density issue.
Just for clarification, the text amendment would allow the applicant to apply for a special use permit in order to, if they were not in compliance with the AR regulations, they would need to acquire a special use permit in order for that.
Yes, thank you. But it seems like we're really getting away from the spirit of the attached residential zoning. It just seems like we're getting away from it. And I think we've gone, you know, we're on this slope. Where do we stop?
Mr. Bryan, I would like to offer that the streets at the landings are only 20 feet wide, back of curb to back of curb, and we're proposing 27, so it's 7 feet wider, which does allow parking on one side of the street due to the National Fire Code. The 20 feet wide at the landings does not allow parking on either side of the street due to the fire code. So it is a significant difference, at least in the eyes of fire code, and I believe that 7 feet will make it feel quite a bit more open along the street area. And then, as I noted earlier, the distance between side of home to side of home at the landings was 10 feet, whereas we're proposing 17.
Thank you.
Yes, I understand. But you're also asking for 0 lot lines.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Other questions or comments?
Yes, I have a couple comments.
Dr. Pope?
On page 80, section 2A, down at the bottom, it says front yard setbacks, 25 feet for any yard of public right-of-way, and then 12 feet for any front yard or private travelway, parking bay provided minimum yard depth be measured from the facing building to either the back of the vehicular pavement curbing or the back of a sidewalk. If he's proposing on this development to have a 17-foot setback, is that right? Is that correct?
It's 17 side yard,
What's the front
12,
yard?
The
12
homes are
foot for the front yard.
12 feet from
But
back
is
of
that going to
curb.
be 12 foot from the curbing or 12 foot from a sidewalk that's going to be there? So if you're going to put a 3-foot sidewalk in there, that's really going to creep to 15 feet unless you have a grass sidewalk, front yard, but it would really expand that if I'm reading the ordinance correctly. Is that correct? Am I interpreting that correctly?
I think you are, Dr.
That is correct.
So that's going to add to your distance off the road if you have to put a sidewalk, or if you are going to put a sidewalk in front of these homes, your measurement starts from the back of the sidewalk, not the curb. So that's going to extend it, it may be 27-foot wide street, but you're going to also extend it an additional something. Because if he's got a 12-foot yard, and then you got to have, if you're going to require a sidewalk in there, it's going to push it back even further for both of the buildings, assuming the sidewalks on both sides of the road. So that's going to push and give it a more open feel. I think also it comes down to a philosophical question of, these are going to be individual condos. Do you want individual condos, or do you want multifamily residential not assisted living, but multifamily residential living situations? He could come in and build 150 units and take Mr. Mamudis's plan and build it today, and we can't stop it.
That's right.
So the question is do you think that multifamily residential with more open space and a little bit better sightlines, as Mr. Covington has demonstrated, is a better plan than an individual unit such as this that may give a condo space? And I'm assuming the people that are gonna buy the condo space are gonna recognize their yard limitations and their ability to have privacy, because that all goes into what the current market seems to bear, which is nobody really wants single-family homes a whole lot anymore, or they want very minimum outside upkeep. But I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm thinking, do you have to think in your mind, are you gonna want units that are gonna be like this, or are you gonna want a multifamily residential unit? I don't think anybody's gonna take an 18-acre lot and put cluster development for that would be 5 units, 5.5 units per acre. So I can't do 5 times 18, but 88, give or take. You're gonna put 88 homes on there minus roads, minus open space, but you're talking 50 homes probably. Is 50 homes gonna be better in that lot, or is something like this where you have a smaller unit that's closer knit? I don't think a 1,200-foot building, square foot building, is gonna bear $300,000 or $400,000. That's gonna give you a development cost somewhere around $350 to $400 a square foot. I haven't done the math since last month, but that's a whole lot compared to what the current building is bearing right now. So I don't think it's gonna be a $300,000 or $400,000, and if it is, I don't know who wants to pay $300,000 or $400,000 for 1,200 square feet. That's gonna be an issue for that. If I calculate density correctly, he meets density requirements. If he's at 150 units, it's 8.2 units per acre at 18.25 acres that he's development. So multifamily residential is 12 units per acre, so that's already below. And if he goes with 130, that's gonna give him 7.1 units per acre. So he's not gonna be over the maximum density that's required by the ordinance. And if he eliminates the 16 buildings along Battery Park Road, that gets him to a density of 6.2 units per acre, which is below the attached residential standard that's in the ordinance. So it looks dense because it's a lot of stuff crammed on 18 acres, but it's not any more dense than anything else that anybody else has requested. So for that part of it. I'm assuming, for me, looking at this ordinance, you know, we have a height ordinance in there of 90 feet. That seems wrong. We just did a PMUD at 60.
Yeah.
But it says in here under FC, F1C, cupola, spire, steeple, special use permit, planning commission, 90 feet. But that number needs to be looked at.
Yeah, indeed.
But that requires a whole ordinance change issue, but that's up there. So I think it really comes down to is, for me, is do you want to see, I'm gonna call them single family, or that type of unit versus, or do you want a multifamily unit? And then the second comment is the 150 previously approved units have already been accounted for in infrastructure for water, sewer, schools, police, fire, rescue. All that has already been accounted for within the previous approval of 150. So any decrease to that is going to be a benefit, in my opinion, because it has already been accounted for in Mrs. Briggs' study. And so any change to that is going to be an improvement to those numbers. To me, it really comes down to is, do you want more multifamily residential type of units, which is going to be more of an ideal look for this? If this developer abandons this, do you want commercial development there of some sort, or are you going to want something like this? Those are going to be the 3 uses for this. I don't think there's going to be a lot of single-family homes coming back into this location. I don't see it, and I may be wrong unless the developer sees something differently than I do, but I don't see this as going to be a single-family home development. It's going to be commercial, multifamily residential, or a proposal such as this. So I think in our minds, as this moves forward, whether we approve the text amendment tonight or not, it's what do you see that vision for, and how is this going to transpire?
Thank you, Dr. Pope. Anything else?
I'll just add just a few brief comments. We are not approving anything tonight.
Correct.
Correct.
There is absolutely no rezoning, there's no improvement of this development being asked for tonight at all. All that we're asking for is a text amendment so we can look at it, so we can weigh it, so the citizens who just had in great comments. We've also had a developer that last month said, I'm willing to make some changes, tell me what you want to see.
Right.
Maybe I can, maybe I can't, but I'm willing to discuss it. So if we don't make this text change, it's done. We don't
And
get an
it's a
opportunity.
recommendation.
Correct.
right?
It's
Council
a
has to-
recommendation
still
to
has
town council. If we don't send it to town council well, we're gonna make it, send it with one recommendation, one way or the other, but
Yeah,
the project's done if he doesn't get this.
exactly.
So I'm in favor of at least giving them an opportunity to present to us a product that maybe is better, maybe is not. My opinion is it probably is. I think this is a better look. But we haven't seen all of it, and he hasn't had a chance to explain all of it to us. So, I think we need to make a positive recommendation to town council to make this text change so that the developer can move forward with the development. And then if he is successful with that, if we're successful with that text amendment and he brings it forward, then we can weigh out the merits of the entire development. We can ask for the changes that we want to see that make it better. Or it's like Dr. Pope said, tomorrow somebody could go in there with by right and develop what has already been approved, and that's 15 10-plex units.
Correct. Is that a motion, Mr. Pack?
Yes, Chairman Hilligas, I'll be happy to make a
Second.
motion to make a recommendation to town council for this text amendment change.
We have a motion and a second for recommendation for text amendment. Call for question.
Well, before,
It's a slippery slope.
Any more discussion?
more discussion, only in the sense of looking at the attached residential issues. If we're gonna start making changes, are we happy with the 90-foot height restriction? Things like that need to be changed at
What
this
page is that,
step
Dr. Pope?
in order, well, when you come down, so the attached residential ordinance starts on page 77. And
Where's the 90-foot piece?
That's on page 80.
it comes
Hey,
down
thank
as you look down at all the minimum sizes and this, that, and the other, and then it comes down
It's
to,
F1C.
Yes.
On page 80.
So with that, the 90-foot is for cupolas, spiros, and steeples. That doesn't allow for residential to be 90-foot. You can put a
well,
90-foot
I get
hotel
that,
in there.
but this is the whole this is the whole attached residential. So anybody using this in the future,
Right.
it can go up to 90 feet.
That would only be if they
Put a church in
acquired,
here or did
if
something.
they acquired a special use permit.
Correct,
Or a four-story hotel, right?
that's right.
But you couldn't do that with this. Not with F1C. Cupolas, spires, and steeples are all architectural features that are
Correct. It's very
non-occupied
specific.
building.
The building heights are in A and B.
Yeah, the building height is residential at 35, and the public or semi-public is 45. So we still have what I consider to be reasonable height restrictions on the buildings. But if you put a church in there and it's 45 foot high, and then you put a 90-foot steeple, that's probably a bit excessive, but it's all done by special use permit anyhow. But point being is that 90 foot doesn't allow you to build and construct and live inside that 90 feet. You still have to
I
make.
get it, but if we're gonna limit at other heights, why is this one so excessive?
So when we did the PMUD, we limited building height to 35 foot except by special use permit. Do we have other height restrictions in town?
They vary across the zoning ordinance. But if this is something that the planning commission would like staff to look at, we'd be more than happy to bring back an analysis of building heights.
Oh, okay, I'm just saying, we've gotta send this for a recommendation, this gets approved, then okay, but I guess all that has to go before public hearing anyways and all of that.
Correct.
Yeah, all right. We can look at it at a future date if necessary.
Okay. Anything else? Call for the question, please.
Mr. Bryan?
No.
Dr. Pope?
Yes.
Mr. Pack?
Yes.
Vice Chair Davidson?
Yes.
And Chairwoman Hilliard?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Minutes without bill? Thank you.
Staff recommends deferring them
Okay.
to next month.
Everybody get that? Recommend deferring minutes till next month. Any further business for the good of the cause, ladies and gentlemen? Hearing none, I will adjourn. Thank you for your time.
Quick meeting. Huh?